What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 in your C++ series. This video, we are going to be talking about if statements. Depending on how much experience you have with software development, you might be thinking, what's the point? Like, what are we even doing? Well, it's not really super clear the value of coding until you can actually change the output of the code depending on some input. Whenever we use applications, they're very complex. They do things based on how we interact with them. It's often not just a linear application that does the same thing every single time. So with if statements, we can make more dynamic, interactive applications, and this is where things get exciting. You can create very cool custom stuff. So let's go ahead and create a dynamic application which will ask the user if they want to play a game. And then the user can say yes or no. So let's go ahead and get started, but first I wanted to say a special thank you and shout out to our sponsor, which is Embarcadero C++ Builder. If you want to get started with that for free, you can check out the community edition. I'll leave a link down below. So this is the code we have from the previous video. We're going to do something pretty similar, but it doesn't hurt to rewrite. So let's go ahead and just delete that. We will keep the system pause and the return 0. Now let's go ahead and we will say using namespace std instead of just having the cout, so that way we can save us some typing for everything. And we will say cout, do you want to play a game? And when you ask the user a question, you will often want to give an example or a description of what kind of response is expected. So inside of parentheses, and these parentheses are still inside of the quote, we will just say yes/no. So that way the user knows that we're expected to type a Y or an N as a response. And generally people are going to understand that Y is yes and is no. Although you should also assume when writing software that everybody's an idiot and is going to type something totally incorrect. However, we're not going to worry about the edge cases for the majority of this series. We're just going to worry about the basic functionality. You can build on this to, worry about some of the different possible inputs. But for now, let's just worry about getting this working for someone who uses it correctly, which is typing Y or N. And we'll talk about a few variations. So for example, you might want to allow them to type yes or a capital Y. We're going to talk about some of those, but we're not going to cover every scenario of what the user could possibly type in. So let's go ahead and create a variable response. That is where we are going to store what they say, and we'll say cin response. And then let's go ahead and respond back to them with what they typed. You entered, and we will end the double quote there, and then use another. You can chain these operators. This is an example of an operator, so we can chain these together so you can have two of them as we've seen, and we'll just say response and L to go down to the next line. Now this is the part where we start typing the if statement. You will say if, and the structure for this is parentheses and then curly braces. So very similar to the function syntax where we have the parentheses and the curly braces. The same idea. Now inside of the parentheses, we're going to create some expression which will evaluate to true or false. If it evaluates to true, whatever's inside of these curly braces will execute. So let's go ahead and write this part first since it's really easy. We'll just say, let's play a game then. So that is what we will do if they say yes. The question is, how do we check to see if they said yes? If you want to give it a shot with some research, pause the video and give it a go. And if you've done any programming before, then this is probably pretty familiar, but for those of you who have not, you will basically do some comparison, and this will evaluate to true or false. Now I wanted to call out an important thing here. You can see we're getting an error, and this is an invalid expression. So what that means is the comparison is invalid because I'm using single quotes here. So single quotes allow you to use just a single character, but this is still a conflict of types. So what we'll need to do is use double quotes. So this is basically a string with a single character in it. I know that's a little bit confusing, but just an important note, you will want to use the double quotes on this character. So let's go ahead and try this out. Do you want to play a game? We say Y for yes, hit enter. You entered Y. Let's play a game then. You can see it works. Let's go ahead and try again, but this time typing in N for no. You entered N, nothing happens. So the thing inside of this parentheses here is known as an expression. Specifically, this is a comparison, and an expression in general is going to evaluate to some value. This will evaluate to true or false. True and false are known as booleans, and they exist as keywords, so the keyword false and the keyword true. So if you, just as an example, type that in here, if true, this is always going to execute, and there's a good chance the compiler will realize that and just remove this section altogether and just always output what's inside of it. But just so you know that true is a keyword and false is a keyword. So you'll probably see those pop up. Now let's talk a little bit more about these equal signs. So we say response is equal to Y. We use two equals here because that is how we compare. This is the comparison operator. An operator takes operands, in this case the response string, and the string literal Y. Literal is when it's just typed out like that. And it will compare to see if they are the same value, and if they are, it will return true. So this is kind of like a function, which we'll learn more about functions here soon. That's all I got in this video. Hopefully that was a good introduction to if statements and some other vocabulary. This is kind of one of those things where I'm trying to teach these principles as we go and build out a more complex example. So we might not necessarily have a dedicated video to expressions or to comparison operators. And I think that's okay because you can learn the foundation here and you can learn all of the details with some additional research or when you need to reference material later. So that's all I got in this video. Stay tuned for the next one, which is going to be about some cool functions.